Hello. Um, Today I thought I would try something new. It's something that I've been thinking about for a little bit of time now. I've been I had separated myself from trying to get in the public eye for a few years, a couple years, and it came alongside a very harsh realization that I knew very little. I have very growing up. I've always enjoyed talking. I've enjoyed attention. I still do. Uh, my opinions have always been very strong, and I get very excitable to say the least. But one of the things I noticed, this was after reading 12 Rules for Life, there was a rule in that book called "Assume the person that you're listening to might know something that you don't." And hearing Dr. Peterson's arguments about, you know, maybe you don't know everything, and, in regards to education, why wouldn't I want to learn from the people that have gone before me? And when it comes to books, the same concept. It's a privilege to get in the mind of people who have experienced something, and I was always very cynical, and for no reason, I had decided very early on I was not going to get a degree for the rest of my life because I wanted to be able to say I made it without a degree. There was no other goal. It wasn't attached to anything that I could make. I didn't have anything that I could give or produce or add to society. It was just, I won't get a degree and I'm going to make it. And that was good enough. When it came to reading, it was this very naive cynicism of the fact that, I'd see people read a book and they would talk so highly of it while they were reading it or shortly after, and swear by it, tell you, you have to do this, read this book, it's going to change your life. And then, maybe not even that same person, but someone would, then introduce another book, and their orientation in their life would be shifted in that direction. And so I thought it was very useless. I was very cynical about reading. I didn't know how to get past the fact that you could become very fascinated with an idea and move on from it, and just think that was useless because you've moved on. Maybe not all of the ideas will be at your forefront, but I didn't seem to grasp that maybe there was at least even a single tool that could be utilized that I had learned or from reading. And so I was pretty disinterested in books. So my view of life really had to change, and I realized that a lot of my very strong, harsh opinions came without much backing, and I realized very quickly that I wasn't good at listening. I didn't understand much. My opinions were, at the very least, uneducated. I'd read maybe 8 books in my life, yet somehow I thought that I was, when I was 19, I thought I was going to be president. Like, I genuinely thought of how I could prepare my life to be president. It was ridiculous. And so I decided to try to withdraw from the public, from trying to get in the public eye, even though I've always wanted to. I've always enjoyed communicating and having people listen, and it has been difficult to restrain it from becoming pathological. But I decided to use the last couple of years to read and to digest. I decided to go back to school. Originally, I went to school to get a degree in film, and I had gotten an associate's degree in that, but after moving to Georgia, I realized that wasn't something that would work for me, and so I gave myself permission to have one oops, and I switched to psychology, majorly influenced, of course, by Dr. Peterson, wanting to put myself in a position where I can learn to listen and try to help people in a manner that is proper. And maybe after, the cliche of 10,000 hours, then maybe I could try and be something like a professor or educator. So that's kind of been my frame of mind. And so I went back to school. I'm 2 quarters away from finishing my bachelor's degree. Then after that, on track to pursue a doctoral and then going to be a clinician after that. And so these last 2 years have been heavily focused on shaping myself to be a student. And I started to reach the point where I felt like I was becoming a swamp. Aside from a lot of personal troubles with mental health and family issues, there was I reached a point where I felt like all I was doing was intaking. And so it was interesting because I felt some form of calling to try to put my hands to work on something. And so the call to writing something and putting words to paper, to digital paper, because I hate actually handwriting, I felt like I needed to start putting words to things because I had assembled so many ideas. In the last 2 years, I think I've read almost 100 books. So compared to the history, that was a major change for me. And so I decided to try and compile and map out some of my ideas. And so I thought that it might be interesting to try reading the things that I've written, partly to grow the audience of my writing. Writing and posting it on the internet is not really the most it's not the easiest way to digest media. And so I understand, one, I'm new to this, so I don't have much of a following, and two, I think that people reading is also a very specific niche. So partly to grow my audience, and then partly to try again. I wanted to just this idea of reading and talking about what I've written keeps nagging at me, so I decided to give it a shot. So I'm going to read the first thing that I wrote when trying, and I am going to try to talk about it and go from there. So in advance, I will say this is not my best work. It is neat to see the change, the improvement over time, and the willingness to be patient and refine and cut and rewrite. That's cool. I can even I notice my headspace and can measure whether or not I'm doing well on my willingness to slow down and really work on an article and hone the argument as best I can. So that's been an interesting journey in and of itself. But this is the first thing, so of course it's not the best. It's very wordy, but it is a first thing. I had been very influenced by Ayn Rand's work, so a lot of it is very in tone and tonality of her work. So that is partly there as well. But I titled this essay "Existence," an essay on trying to live. So, here we go. How can one resist the temptation of refusing to live? To consume rather than to create, to sleep rather than to wake, to dream rather than to be. How can one climb out of the stagnant swamp of existence and to imbibe the spirit of creation? When dreams are more conscious than the waking day, when he has become overweight on the gluttonous consumption of others' ideas, yet has not exercised the effort of shining his own light, what words can he find that are his own? When reality makes him, how can he take back what is rightfully his life? Here could be an answer. Begin. When lifting a finger only for the sake of eating another bite becomes the baseline, even the raising of a glass in salute is progress. Here we begin to see how 1 is exponentially greater than 0. Perhaps allowing yourself to the embarrassment of being a fool, or more accurately, acknowledging the fact that you are one, is necessary to have the chance of becoming something worthy of existence. Did prehistoric man climb down from the trees so that his faculty of speech and reason reaches that of an ape? The snakes did not surrender to the mindless ignoramus that casually walked the grounds. No, he was its food, while the productive, thoughtful, and living man lived. A mind that is not used for anything other than consumption reaches the point of consuming its own self. A non-mind, a non-person, is one that hears without changing, plans without acting, and takes without becoming part of the process that made that thing possible. Here is to taking a first step. I raise my glass in salute to the minds and the lives that have brought me here. May their light guide me as I risk to find my own. Wasn't it evil to wish without moving, or to move without aim? Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged. That's the final part, and that was written June 12th of this year. The image of the essay is a it looks like an archaic, pretty, I don't know, why can't I even think of the word, an old painting. We'll just leave it at that because the word is not coming to me. It says guy drinking, looks like wine, and next to him is a demon, and someone behind him consistently pouring alcohol into his glass. So it looked like the epitome of gluttony. The demon's holding the light, and this person is just consuming, and that was where I began to feel I was only consuming. I reached the point where I was becoming a stagnant swamp, where it was just taking in ideas and not doing anything with it. Honestly, reading through it isn't as bad as I recall it, but I definitely feel the tonality of Ayn Rand's work in this essay. The aspect of if a non-mind, a non-person, is one who hears without changing, plans without acting, but then takes without becoming a part of the process that makes that thing possible. That type of idea it's really been sticking with me with this idea of criticizing the West, or criticizing rich people, or criticizing someone who has or is of more merit. I always notice that a lot of the people that are the loudest seem to be the ones who don't produce, the ones who don't have wealth. It seems kind of convenient that those who have some are the ones who should be cursed, when the person who's making those curses or stating those curses is someone who doesn't have the capacity to create, but to use that which that person has given. So Elon Musk, for example, is a massive producer. Yes, he's surrounded by people that are, of course, equally brilliant, but to only lay that at the feet of the brilliant people around him is to ignore the fact that he has set himself up around people that are brilliant. So if he was a complete imbecile, he would not have surrounded himself by geniuses to help him accomplish. So even on that own merit, that own claim of it's just other people's smartness, are those smart people around him, are they only good because of the people around their intelligence? There's an infinite regress that we can reach where we aren't acknowledging the fact that there are people who create. So you can blame the rich for having some, but you use their tools to curse them. For example, you could curse Tim Cook while tweeting from your iPhone. I mean, it just seems oxymoronic, or a better example that I've seen that's really more poignant is when, there's been a lot of Middle Eastern and Islamic states moving towards Western societies, but they do not want to assimilate towards our culture. But our culture is the fruit of progress. It is the fruit of individual freedom. It has enough peace and honesty and tranquility for them to want to move here. So while they curse the capitalistic society that they are benefiting from, they also are taking the money and the shelter that we are providing because we have created a society that is capable of that peace. So this idea of consuming without becoming a part of the thing that creates is something that's really been striking a chord in me lately, because I think that we should be very cautious when criticizing things. I've been trying to exercise this same discipline when it comes to criticizing religion. I have severe qualms with a lot of religious thought. I have a lot of problems primarily with Christianity because that's what I grew up with, but the biggest challenge really is the fact that this thing has been around for a long time. And in the same sense that I felt shameful to have been so bold in my criticisms of university and reading, I have come to the conclusion that I should probably not criticize religion so cautiously, because it's been around for so long, so the likelihood that I understand it enough to fully criticize it is absolutely minuscule. So I have been disciplining myself to try to understand. I've been going back and forth between pro and con readings of religion. So this is something that is a personal journey for myself as well. But I mean, this entire essay really was just me talking to myself. Will you become a living person? Will I choose to live and step out and not just rely on the intelligence and smarts of others, which I had chosen to submit myself to, but risk finding a light of my own and mixing those ingredients that I have found and combining them with my own idiosyncratic ideas? How can I formulate those concepts? So, I think what I am gonna do, I think this went well. Interested in hearing if anyone disagrees or finds something else could be more useful, but I think what I will do is, if I ever post an essay, I'm going to try to read it and discuss it and talk about where my mind was for that. I have, I think, 11 essays that I've published, so I've got a lot of catching up to do, but that's fine. I believe I will try publishing once a week. As far as actually writing goes, I've been trying to at least write an essay once a month, so eventually I'm going to run out of content once I've actually read. But in the meantime, there's a lot of things that we can play with. So I'd be fascinated to hear anyone's thoughts. And if anyone has listened to this, I hope that hearing this stream of consciousness was helpful, and I hope that I can shed some light on how I've overcome the journey of personal collapse. And I mean, maybe we'll get through into some of the aspects of depression as well. I know there's a lot of essays that I've written and poems that I've written on the depressive element, so we can get into that. But I want to say thank you for your time, and I guess I'll talk to you next week.